Most people fail when they try to confront a narcissist because they step straight into a fight the narcissist has already prepared. You notice the disrespect, you feel the sting, so you do what any honest person would do. You speak up. You bring your real feelings. You bring fairness. You bring the hope that one calm talk can fix the tension and bring peace back. You explain how they hurt you. You assume that if they truly understand your pain, they will want to make it right. But that is the trap. You think you are entering a normal conversation. You are not. You are walking onto a psychological battlefield. A narcissist is not listening the way you listen. They are not standing in the same reality. They live inside a twisted inner world where they are always the center, always the victim, always the hero of the story. And everyone else is expected to support that script. Your facts do not move them. Your logic does not shake them. Even your tears can become fuel for them. Your anger helps them more than it helps you. Your frustration becomes proof in their mind that you are the unstable one, and they use that to feel calm, superior, and right. That is why arguing with raw emotion almost never works. You are playing a game they designed. They wrote the rules. They control the pace. They thrive in chaos. And if you keep meeting them there, you leave drained, confused, and defeated. But stay with me, because this is where the power starts to shift. The real change begins the moment you stop reacting and start responding. That sounds simple, but it changes everything. A reaction is quick, it is sharp, it is the sudden raised voice, the instant defense, the desperate explanation, the emotional burst that happens before you even think. A response is different, it is slower, stronger, colder in the best way. It is grounded. It is chosen. It says, I will not play this game with you anymore. When you react, you hand your power away. When you respond, you take it back. And that is the part many people miss. Your words are not supposed to win a screaming match. Your words are supposed to build a wall, a clear one, a solid one, a wall made of reality, not emotion. That is what a boundary really is. It is not a punishment. It is not revenge. It is structure. It is clarity. It is you standing on what is real while the other person tries to pull you into confusion. A narcissist cannot easily break a boundary that is calm, specific, and repeated without drama. They want movement. They want panic. They want you spinning. What they do not know how to handle is stillness. Real stillness, the kind that comes from someone who no longer needs to prove what they know. And once you understand that, your voice changes, your face changes, your energy changes. You stop trying to make them understand your pain, and you start making it clear what you will and will not allow. That is a massive shift. And once it happens, the whole dynamic begins to crack. Many people think narcissists are fearless, confident, and strong. They see the arrogance, the control, the cold attitude, the way they talk as if they are above everyone else. So they assume the best way to push back is with stronger anger or stronger logic. But anger feeds them. Logic often bores them. What they truly fear is something much deeper. They fear being seen clearly, not praised, not feared, seen. Because behind the big image they project, there is often a fragile center packed with shame, insecurity, and a painful need to avoid feeling small. Think of it like a tall, shining fortress built from mirrors and armor. It looks impressive from the outside, hard, untouchable. But the entire thing exists to hide weakness, emptiness, and fear. They build a false self because they cannot bear to face their real self. And that is why calm truth hits so hard. Not loud truth, calm truth. When you speak to them without rage, without pleading, without needing them to agree, you become dangerous to their illusion. You are no longer attacking wildly, you are shining light. You are holding up a mirror. And that mirror forces them, even for a second, to sense the gap between who they pretend to be and what they really are. That is why certain simple words can hit like a trigger, not because the words are magical, but because they come from someone who is no longer hypnotized. Watch that carefully. A narcissist may laugh at your insults, they may twist your emotions, but being seen with sharp, calm clarity can shake them in a way shouting never will. And that brings us to the part that matters most. Setting a boundary is not aggression. That difference matters more than people realize. A narcissist will often try to convince you that your boundary is cruel, selfish, cold, or unfair. That is part of the control. They want you to feel guilty for protecting yourself. But aggression is about controlling someone else. A boundary is about protecting your own space. Aggression steps into another person's yard to force a result. A boundary stands in your own yard and says, "You do not get to cross this line." That is not abuse, that is self-respect. And the tone matters just as much as the words. In fact, the tone may matter more. If you scream your boundary, the narcissist hears emotion. They hear pain. They hear a chance to hook you into another round. But when you state a boundary like a simple fact, almost like saying the sky is blue or 2 + 2 is 4, the energy changes. There is no chase in it, no begging, no panic, just truth. Truth delivered quietly can feel unbearable to someone who survives by twisting reality. It reflects their chaos right back at them. It shows them they cannot move you as easily as before. And that is when the power starts leaving their hands. So if you have been telling yourself that you were chosen because you are weak, erase that lie. That is not why this happened. People like this often move toward empathy, integrity, and competence because those qualities are valuable. They sense light, they sense steadiness, they sense goodness. And if they cannot own it, they often try to drain it, reshape it, or crush it. That is why understanding the pattern is not just helpful, it is necessary. A narcissist usually does not begin by smashing your boundaries in a way that is obvious. If they did, you would likely leave early. Instead, they test you in small ways, very small ways. A strange joke at your expense, a promise quietly broken, a compliment with a hidden insult inside it, a tone that feels off but is easy to dismiss. Each one is a probe, a test, a silent question asking, will you accept this? If you ignore it just to keep the peace, they learn something. If you laugh it off when it hurt, they learn something. If you explain away their behavior because you are tired, kind, or hopeful, they learn exactly how far they can go next time. That is how the cycle grows. Slowly, almost invisibly, the small broken promise becomes a larger betrayal. The private jab becomes a public humiliation. The disrespect increases in steps, and each step trains you to accept more than you once thought you ever would. This is how people end up walking on eggshells and calling it normal life. This is how self-trust starts fading. Good people are especially vulnerable to this because they keep projecting their own decency onto the other person. They think, maybe they are stressed. Maybe I am too sensitive. Maybe they did not mean it like that. And while you are busy doubting yourself, the manipulator is busy studying your limits. That is why self-doubt becomes one of their strongest tools. They make you question your reactions instead of questioning their behavior. They turn you into an unreliable witness in your own life. But sooner or later, something breaks that fog. One moment, one line crossed, one act so cruel or so clear that you finally stop hoping they will change and realize the change has to begin with you. When that moment comes, you do not need a speech full of rage. You need clean language. You need words that cut through confusion without feeding the chaos. The first one is simple. I see what you are doing. This sentence matters because it exposes the game without stepping into it. A manipulator likes shadows. They like half-truths, passive aggression, mixed messages, and comments they can later deny. They survive on your confusion. They want you replaying their words for hours, trying to decode what really happened. But when you calmly say, I see what you are doing, you break that spell. And here is the key part. Do not rush to explain. Do not list every example. Do not argue your case. The second you start proving it, they drag you into details, denial, blame shifting, and gaslighting. The power of this sentence lives in what you do not say. It leaves them uncertain about how much you understand, and that uncertainty bothers them deeply. It tells them, The cover is gone. The mask slipped. The game has been noticed. The second line is this: that is not my responsibility. This one is powerful because narcissists often dump their emotions, failures, and mess onto other people as if it naturally belongs there. Their bad mood becomes your problem. Their poor choices become your burden. Their chaos gets delivered to your door. Saying, that is not my responsibility, is how you hand it back. Calmly, cleanly. No guilt, no rescue. For caring people, this can feel harsh at first, but it is not harsh. It is healthy. Helping someone is one thing. Becoming the container for their irresponsibility is another. And once you stop carrying what was never yours, the dynamic begins to weaken fast. The third statement is one every person should practice until it comes out with quiet certainty. I will not be spoken to that way. Not please do not why are you talking like this, not a long emotional speech about how disrespect hurts you. Just a clear line. I will not be spoken to that way. This is a rule, not a request. It does not ask for understanding. It does not beg for better behavior. It simply announces a standard. And that standard must be followed by action if the disrespect continues. That is what gives it weight. The fourth line is even harder for many people, but it matters. Your feelings about this are not my problem. That does not mean you become cruel. It means you stop becoming their emotional manager. Narcissists often use anger, tears, silent treatment, guilt, or dramatic hurt as tools to make you back down. They create emotional fires and train you to run in and put them out. The point is control. The point is to keep you focused on soothing them instead of protecting yourself. When you calmly say, your feelings about this are not my problem, you cut that wire. You separate your inner world from theirs. You refuse the role of caretaker for emotions they weaponize. And yes, that may upset them, let it. Boundaries are not measured by how happy the other person feels about them. They are measured by whether they protect your peace. Stay with me here because this next part may be the most freeing of all. Once you stop managing their reactions, you stop living like a hostage to their mood. And that shift alone can feel like breathing fresh air after years in a locked room. The fifth statement is this: I do not need to justify myself to you. This one breaks a very old trap. In toxic dynamics, the narcissist often places themselves above you, like a judge, a prosecutor, or the final authority on your choices. Suddenly, you are defending your tone, your friends, your timing, your boundaries, your memory, even your sanity. You find yourself over-explaining because you want to be seen as reasonable. But over-explaining feeds the trap. Every extra sentence becomes material they can twist, question, or use against you later. That is why this line is so important. I do not need to justify myself to you. It closes the courtroom. It ends the false trial. It tells them that your decisions do not need their approval to be valid. The sixth line is just as strong. This conversation is over, not as a dramatic threat, as an exit, as a final stop. Narcissistic conversations often turn in circles. The point is not understanding. The point is exhaustion. They confuse the topic, shift blame, rewrite history, and keep going until your mind feels foggy and weak. That is why ending the conversation is sometimes the healthiest move you can make. But remember this: the sentence works best when it is followed by action. You leave the room. You hang up. You stop replying. You do not stay to debate your right to leave. You leave. That is the proof. That is the boundary made real. And when someone realizes they can no longer trap you in endless draining loops, something changes. They may get louder for a while, they may test harder, but they are no longer dealing with the same version of you. They are meeting someone who has stopped volunteering for confusion. The seventh and final statement cuts deeper than almost anything else. I am not interested in your opinion of me. This is not a petty line. It is not a tantrum. It is a declaration that their approval is no longer the currency running your life. A narcissist depends on a certain structure. They need to be the judge, and they need you to care deeply about the verdict. They need your need for their validation. They need your fear of their rejection. Once that need weakens, their control weakens with it. That is why this line lands so hard when it is real. Not performed, real. I am not interested in your opinion of me. It says, I know who I am. I do not need a toxic mirror to tell me my value. I do not need a broken person to define my worth. I am no longer standing in front of your court asking for a sentence. I walked out. And that is devastating to the whole narcissistic setup because their power often depends less on what they say and more on how much you still need them to say something good. Once you stop needing that, the spell begins to break. And here is the deeper truth under all 7 lines. These statements work because they do not try to change the narcissist. They change your position. They move you out of the role that kept the whole system alive. You stop feeding the fantasy. You stop offering endless emotional reactions. You stop carrying the blame. You stop defending your reality to someone committed to distorting it. That is why the effect can feel so strong. You are no longer helping hold up the false world they built. And without that support, cracks start showing fast. What makes these phrases so effective is not just the wording, it is what the wording represents. A narcissist often builds life around a false self, an inflated image that needs constant attention, praise, control, and emotional supply from other people just to stay inflated. A healthy person has an inner center. Their worth does not collapse every time someone disagrees with them. But a narcissist may depend heavily on outside reactions to feel powerful, important, or safe. That is why even a simple, calm refusal can feel to them like a threat, far bigger than it really is. You are not attacking real strength. You are exposing hidden weakness. You are refusing to pour energy into a structure that cannot stand on its own. And this is why your calm matters so much. Calm does not mean weak. Calm means anchored. Calm means you are not available for bait. Calm means you are no longer easy to pull off center. If they insult you and you stay steady, something shifts. If they blame you and you refuse to carry it, something shifts. If they create chaos and you choose distance over drama, something shifts. That shift may not always make them nicer. In some cases, it may make them test you harder because the old tools are failing. But that does not mean the boundary is wrong. It often means the boundary is finally being felt. And if you have been waiting for some grand, perfect moment to start using your voice differently, let this be it. Not louder, clearer, not crueler, colder in the right way, more exact, more final. Because the truth is, the moment you stop fighting for your place in their story is the moment you begin returning to your own. If you ever find yourself standing in front of someone who thrives on confusion, disrespect, blame, and emotional control, remember this. Your power is not in winning the argument. Your power is in refusing the setup. Your power is in seeing clearly, speaking simply, and leaving when the line is crossed. I see what you are doing. That is not my responsibility. I will not be spoken to that way. Your feelings about this are not my problem. I do not need to justify myself to you. This conversation is over. I am not interested in your opinion of me. These are not magic phrases. They are tools. They work when they come from a person who is done negotiating with disrespect, a person who has stopped trying to be understood by someone invested in misunderstanding them, a person who finally remembers that peace is not found in convincing a toxic person to become healthy. Peace is found in no longer handing them the keys to your mind, your emotions, and your identity. That is the real ending. Not their apology, not their sudden awakening, your clarity, your distance, your self-trust, your return to reality. And once that return begins, everything changes. The fear starts shrinking. The fog starts lifting. The script they forced on you starts losing power line by line. If this message hits home, sit with it. Read it again. Practice the lines out loud until your voice believes them. Because the next time the game starts, you do not need more emotion, you need more truth. Quiet truth, clean truth, unmoved truth. And that kind of truth is very hard to control.